Thank you for your testimony. Certainly you brought new aspects to this issue. The real estate prices and the false impression that a lot of jobs are going to be created. Two questions I have, and then I'll ask my colleagues if they have questions. In terms of the jobs created, I think it was Congressman Turner, who's now running for the United States Senate, actually came out and said 70,000 jobs would be created by hydrofracking in the state. Does anybody want to comment on that?
70,000?
70,000.
The 70,000 job number, I don't know exactly where that came from. I have reviewed, I think, every single study of job creation having to do with shale gas development, both out west, in Texas, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and New York. I don't actually know where that number came from. I know that I hear Obama stating the 600,000 jobs across the nation. We know, I have critiqued the study that came from. That's actually included in my package to you. But that particular study, and all of them, overstate reserves. So if you're overstating reserves and production, you're clearly, and you're putting those overstated assumptions into any kind of economic model, projections of employment that come out of that model are going to be overstated as well. Furthermore, the type of analysis that's typically used in these studies is something called input-output analysis. And that is an excellent tool in some cases. I've used it a number of times myself. But in this particular case, it's not appropriate as a standalone technique. Input-output analysis overstates the benefits, and it leaves out many, many significant costs, which is true of all of these studies in many ways. And one of the things that this type of analysis leaves out are any potential declines in other industries in the area. So we'll be losing employment in other industries. And it doesn't discuss the crowding out issue, as wage rates maybe are bid up in a short-term boom industry whereby other existing businesses cannot afford to keep up with those wage rates, so they can't get workers and they go out of business as well. That's the crowding out phenomenon, which is rarely ever mentioned in this.
Okay. Is it also safe to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of the jobs that are created are very temporary in nature?
Oh, absolutely. We know from Pennsylvania, there are a lot of anecdotes about looking at license plates from Oklahoma and Texas and all of these drilling areas, but we do know reports from Pennsylvania have stated that up to approximately 70% of the workers come from out of state. And if workers are coming from out of state, they're often coming on a transient basis, and while you might see hotel occupancy go up, and some people, I even saw a report once that in Pennsylvania they claimed it's been great for tourism because hotel occupancy is up, and that's how they were measuring tourism. They're not really good ways to measure tourism, and that is typically how one might measure tourism, but it's giving a false impression because it's these temporary workers that are staying in hotels, and those temporary workers are not full-time residents, so they're not paying local taxes, and they're not even spending much of their money that they make in the local economy. They're sending their money to their families in their home states to help the economies there. There was a paper that I wrote early on in early 2010 that explained even that Texas may benefit more from shale gas drilling in New York than will New York, because many of the workers come from Texas and all of the headquarters are down in that area, as well as the ancillary industries. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for that answer. In reference, did you want to comment on that? No.
Just an additional thing, seeing reports from Pennsylvania that where there is a lot of drilling like endemic, homelessness is way up.
In terms of your testimony about property values, has there been any study done in some of the other states where hydrofracking has occurred on a comprehensive basis about how property values have dropped?
There has been no study to my knowledge. I've got anecdotal information. I can comment that the SGICE itself, with a very, I would say, thin report, shows that property values do go down where drilling is occurring. I'm going to leave with you Valuation Magazine, in which I was interviewed along with appraisers in Texas. And interestingly, it all comes down to the water, ultimately. And in Texas, where the shale is deeper, the geology is different, water is scarcer. The issue there is not water quality, it's water quantity. And the appraiser who was interviewed in that, or there actually were a couple who were interviewed in that case, said that actually property values have gone sky high in certain regions, where somebody purchased a home, it went up to $300,000, someone flipped it to $500,000, and he pointed out the fact that they are not at all concerned about the environment, that this is very much a grab it while you can kind of approach to life. And, you know, I will concede that people have different philosophies about how they want to handle something. Do we just grab the money now and take it and run? Or do we make decisions about the fact that we are parents and we have future generations and obligations to our children? In New York, I would add that we have different geology. I call it an embarrassment of riches. We are blessed with water here. It is close to the surface. And while the gas industry will often say there are no cases of water contamination from fracking per se, indeed the water contamination can happen at many points along the continuum of the process, and I think it's very important that we don't get caught in the semantics. And water quality is directly linked to resale value of homes. And we have seen this in Pennsylvania. I've spoken to brokers. In New York State, of course, we're not doing this drilling yet. So this is going to be, what is the potential? In New York State, people are having difficulty selling their homes. A woman from Maryland, New York, called me where there's vertical fracking, and the broker said to her, because she's got a bubbling brook and there have been health impacts, I'm sorry, but I think it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to sell your home. You know, we can get this anecdotal. I will add, though, that people, particularly in Pennsylvania until very recently, are extremely reluctant to speak. You know, this is the catch-22 here. People are feeling uncomfortable about being too open about this because they live in neighborhoods, they're concerned about retaliation. It's the same mentality, frankly, as the non-disclosure. So I think we really have to be very careful and read between the lines.
Thank you.
May I add something?
Sure.
The potential impact on property values, as you know, has been a very contentious issue in this. It's another one of the major unanswered questions. But I have seen reports that the Central Real Estate Appraisal District in Wise County, Texas, which is really in the heart of the Barnett Shale, they have valued homes they have dropped the value in homes by as much as 75% if a gas well sits on the property. That's a huge decline. And similar reports in Colorado have been on the order of 22 to 25% decline in value.